Hey everybody, thanks for clicking on Storm Talk. Although this blog update is not exactly going to be about Storm Talk today. I'm going to cover more of the issues for the weekend, any storm chances or anything like that through the grab and go videos. And then next week we'll dive much more into the month of August and get more detail about how that's going to set up into September. But I want to talk a little bit. I already posted on my Facebook page. Those of you that follow me on Facebook, you know that I had on there that 3 months from tonight, Halloween, I will be issuing my thoughts for the upcoming winter. Phase 1. I usually do a Phase 2 later in November, but Phase 1 will be Halloween night. Now, I will say this. I have a lot to look through, and I'm only getting some pieces of data already this close. Usually I have quite a bit. This is not going to be an easy one at all this year. I say that every year, but this year is really going to be a challenge. There's still quite a few other pieces of data we're going to need, and we're not going to have until closer to the time of Halloween. As you all know, winter forecasting in advance is nearly impossible. But it doesn't mean it's crazy not to do it, or at least attempt to do it. Because if we give up and say it's crazy, we're never going to do it, then no one's ever going to figure out a way to do it. There has to be a way to figure out patterns and identify signals and be able to predict what could happen. That's our job as meteorologists and climatologists, to kind of figure this out. So I will always keep doing these each and every year. I know a lot of meteorologists are not big fans of that, of doing these kind of outlooks in advance, but I really think you have to try your best. You are likely going to fail. You may not be spot on. If you did, you probably just got lucky. But there's got to be a pattern that we eventually are going to identify, and you guys following my blogs may start to pick up on signals and identify things that I repeatedly say each and every year that end up being true later. So it's a learning experience, and this is part of our transparency that we have here with the Wave 3D Storm Tracking team with you guys. We want to make sure we're very transparent and always sharing our thoughts to you and what we're thinking about. I know we have a lot of snow lovers. A lot of the true snow lovers are very vocal on social media. A lot of you, though, are quiet. You don't want to get involved in the comments. I get it, because I see some of the comments and the battles that happen, and I feel sorry for some of them that have to fight it out. It's just forecasting. It's just weather. All right, we got enough problems in the world to be stressed out about a post about winter forecasting. But anyway, so this particular update I'm going to do is going to be about some of the data that I'm getting already, and that is going to be in regards to El Nino. A lot of talk about El Nino. So I'm going to cover what it is and its likely impacts and some things that I'm noticing. I'm not going to give out a winter outlook on this update, so don't click off the video, but I'm just not going to give an outlook. But at least I'm giving you at least a jump start of what some of the data I'm gathering. This is the time I start putting a file together and working on it, and then eventually by Halloween I'll have it ready to go. So to start off with, let's talk about El Nino. El Nino is all about the ocean temperatures. And what usually will happen, this part of the world, the equatorial area, where the equator is, we have the trade winds that blow in from the east. That is why most of the tropical systems go in this direction until natural Coriolis effect, the spinning of the earth, kicks in, and they get brought into the westerlies and they begin to turn. And then sometimes they can turn right into California, into the southwest, even turn toward Kentucky with beneficial rains. That's happened before. And that's why usually Hawaii gets missed. Although Guillermo, which just formed into a hurricane, by the way, may not miss Hawaii because of what's happening with El Nino. So that's something they're going to be watching. There's Hawaii right there, by the way. But normally they would curve out, or they hit the colder water that's usually found here, and they weaken completely. They can go from a hurricane to an area of low pressure in a matter of 12 hours in some cases. It's rapid weakening. So what happens is the easterlies typically are strong. They take all the warm water that's in this area and they shove it over to the other side of the shores of Africa into Asia, eastern side of Asia as well. The sea level actually rises as a result. Because of that, we actually can cool the water down at times in this area. Takes all the warm water, moves it away, so the cold water underneath goes to the surface. So you prevent an El Nino event happening here in the eastern Pacific Ocean off the coast of South America. You get more warmer waters found more to the west. This year we've noticed is that the easterly winds here that are blowing in are weaker. That means that the warm water is just building and is not going anywhere. That doesn't mean it's cooler to our west. And in fact, Australia has been feeling some of the effects of that in the southern hemisphere as a result, seeing some unusual snow events they haven't had in a couple of decades in that area. So we are seeing definitely a sign here with the easterlies weakening. that the warm waters are now beginning to warm up over the area. And when you look at the anomalies, which we'll dive into, they're quite staggering. But they're already comparing this potential El Nino. It's not even to its peak yet, according to the model data, to what happened in 1997 and 1998. That's the last time we've had one of this intensity. We'll come back to that in just a second. First off, let me show you over the past month, compared to normal, these are the ocean temperatures. Where do we stand? Well, it has been very warm off the coast of Alaska and California and the West Coast in general. That has been allowing the jet to really rise here along the eastern seaboard and has allowed the winters, the past couple of winters, to be very brutal for us. The jet stream gets pushed north into Alaska, so it's like a seesaw. The other side goes down, and you get some cold outbreaks and snowstorms. We have noticed, though, that the El Nino is there. We are certainly getting the warmer than average waters located there in eastern side of the Pacific. But also look what's happened in the past 30 days. When I slide the map over, in the past 30 days, there has been some notable cooling that is happening in the Gulf of Alaska. Now, this is important because this is an area that, if it stays warm, like it has been the past couple of years, it has really allowed the jet to really dive into the eastern part of the country to produce these cold Arctic air blasts to come through. But in the last 30 days, there are signs of cooling that is going on. And notice the amount of warming is very limited to the coast. There's some cooling just off the coast of Washington State and Oregon. Some warming going on here across just west of Mexico. And that little area blue, by the way, is from the tropical systems that cool the water. That's called upwelling. So that's more of a weather phenomenon than El Nino effect. And cool here. But notice it is heating up here near Japan. So what this tells me is that we're going to lose the effects here if this trend continues, which could certainly affect the jet stream pattern for the winter. This very warm water, if it continues to build off Japan, could allow for quite a few typhoons to develop there and eventually curve off to the north and east. We'll see how that could affect the United States down the road as well. So the ocean is changing somewhat, at least in the past 30 days. Now, the big question is it going to continue? We don't know. We do know the models are indicating that, looking at the future, and there's a lot of models here to look at, this is a neutral zone here for ENSOs, what we call it, the ocean patterns. Once you drop below that, you get into La Nina, which is the opposite of warming. It's the cooling of the eastern Pacific. You go above that, it's El Nino. The threshold is 0.5 on either end to officially be qualified as either or. If you're in that zone between the 0.5, positive or negative, you're just neutral. Well, we are beyond that. We're now at the near 1.5 stage. And the models, depending on which model you look at, once you get to about a 2, you're talking about a super El Nino pattern, and that would peak somewhere in the fall. October through December it would peak, and then begin to back off into the winter. But a super El Nino pattern, that would match up, if these models are right, especially the ones in the upper end, would match 1997-98. If you just went by this factor alone, it would usually mean a drier than normal for us in our area, and a lot of temperature swings all over the place, back and forth, and cooler than normal to the south. We would have a subtropical jet, a lot of moisture, a lot of severe weather in some cases could break out in some areas, but we'd have the potential for more icing events, in fact, that happen with a subtropical jet, because it's a warm air component, the subtropical jet from El Nino. So just based on this alone, it would mean a very active winter for us. And I'm talking about active as in rain and, in some cases, snow. But it doesn't necessarily mean a cold, brutal winter, though. I mean, if you go by this, that doesn't necessarily mean a cold, brutal winter, especially if the Gulf of Alaska is losing that warm water that has been a big catalyst for us the past couple of winters. But do you remember what happened here in 1997-98, that winter, especially 1998? Yeah. Now, this was a rare phenomenon, but we had that non-stop light snow, really, that just didn't want to stop. You remember John Belsky outside? I do. In the backyard, constantly on the air, and we ended up with one of our bigger snowstorms in history. It just kept piling up, piling up, and piling up as a feeder band off the Atlantic. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just telling you that when you get a super El Nino, you're going to get wild events. The question is, when and what? And that is going to be my job over the next 3 months to figure that out the best that I can and fill you in as we're all getting our costumes on and getting ready to get out and scare everybody. All right? And hopefully the forecast won't scare anybody. So that's it for now. That's my little teaser for what I'm working on. And yeah, I'll just leave it there. It's a good spot to stop. Looking at that. Isn't that nice? It's just a nice looking map. I'm going to frame that.